people often think about, oh, well, if I do this mindfulness, if I tell myself that I like who I am right now, then I'm just going to get complacent and I won't have a drive. Total crap.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to MentorZ. Today we have on Neal Phalora, a mindset coach, speaker, founder of Feel Good Now, and Icebreaker. Today we'll be talking about the brain and the neuroscience of changing, how we can hack our brains and rewire it for the better. This was such a fun conversation to have, and I honestly hope you get as much out of it as I did. Everybody, and welcome back to MentorZ. I'm here with Neal Phalora. Neal, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so happy to have you.
I am so pleased and honored to be here today. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, of course. So I really want to dive in because you know so much about the brain, and I want to learn everything I can. And it's all about, you do a lot of like mental coaching, life coaching, about positivity and how it can influence you, greatness, all these things. I want to dive into it on a scientific level and like an emotional level and like try to understand. So like when we have viewers, because most of these I'm hoping are going to be like younger kids. I feel like the more that they understand the brain, and the more anyone understands the brain, you can then use that almost to like trick it or rewire it. Actually, you talk about rewiring the brain a lot.
I do. The more that I think for me, the more that you understand the brain, the more that you're able to hack it, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But what I really strive for when I speak about the brain, and I'm by no means like the world leading expert, but because of my own story and my own journey, I kind of had to go and really understand the brain and seek out ways to move my life, my body, my health forward through brain science, is exercising a certain level of biological forgiveness, right? Because a lot of us, what happens is that we have things that happen in our lives, and then we end up owning that. We take personal responsibility. We say that we attach a label to ourselves and say that's me, that's who I am. And what I'm trying to say gently to people is that however you've shown up and whatever results you produced up until now, a large part of that is part of your biology, really. And instead of fighting against it, there's a way in which you can work with it and produce different results. But it's never going to be like this overnight thing, right? It's a process.
So it's like when someone had an experience, you're saying that defines them and that becomes a part of them, but then there's a way you can rewire it.
Correct.
Like experiences, like it's extreme, but like experiences like trauma or like a
sure.
like or great events that happen, and maybe like after that one great event, something dipped down, and you're like, what happened to me? I was this. Why am I like this?
Absolutely. And I think the thing that's hardest for us to sort of get past is that most of us really identify with our thinking brain, right? So we think we are our brain. So that statement by itself for a lot of people would be like, what are you saying?
I know.
What does it mean? Are we going to get woo-woo here and we're going into like the ether of, philosophical or meditation, which that's a whole nother subject that relates to brain science, actually very powerful. But what I mean by that is that we over-identify with our thoughts in the way we're thinking, right? So that's sort of a challenge number one is that how do you kind of separate yourself from what you think, all of the thoughts you have going on. And there's actually a neuroscientific basis for that. It's called metacognition. And really metacognition is thinking about your thinking, or your brain being able to observe how it's behaving. So it's sort of a neutral bystander effect, which is really interesting, because this is a part of the brain science that I love, is that it has a science portion, but it also has a metaphysical portion, because in meditation they talk about this, but they talk about it a different way. They call it being mindful.
Mm-hmm. So wait, if we're not, because again, what your statement was like crazy to me. So if you're not your thoughts, then what are you? Well, actually, then again, you do have thoughts that are like, that's not you. So say like you're in a situation and you just like a person's annoying you, like, I really want to punch them in the face, and you're like, that's not you. That's another thought. But then again, you have to boil it down to who are you, and then how do you separate yourself from your thoughts, and what thoughts can you pick and choose and become a part of you?
Right. And this idea of who we are is so related to our thoughts. So it's challenging to explain that space, but I can explain it simply by saying, if you ever thought of a time in your life where you were like doing something and you were excelling at it, right? You were just doing it and thoughts were coming. Maybe you were playing an instrument. Maybe you got up and to talk about something passionately, right? Maybe you were problem solving and things just started to fall into place, right? For you. I can guarantee you that you weren't thinking about it. You weren't in your head. You were somewhere else. You were down here vibrationally, and it was just flowing, right? Before we started this, you used the word flow, which is a huge word in my world, because when you're in flow, like I used to take guitar lessons. I want to get back and take that, and I would practice at home, and it would be great. And then I would go, and my teacher was an amazing teacher. I'd start to play, and then it would start to all fall apart. And he goes, "You're thinking about it." He goes, "Stop thinking about it." And he kind of snap at me, and it would make me really, and I'd get upset, but I knew he was right because I had put it up here and instead of down here, right? So there's some of that separation. Where that is biologically, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I've heard about the subconscious being more powerful than the conscious.
Right.
Is that what that's about?
That part I haven't, I can't really say, and I'm not sure. There's probably somebody out there who has thoughts or feelings about that, but it brings up another important point. It's like about your subconscious mind or your unconscious mind. So like all of us have smartphones, right? And so you don't think about when you click on your smartphone, like all the things that are in the background that are happening, that when you click on a tile of an app and it does stuff, right? For most of us, we don't think about that. Well, that's the other challenge about who we think we are, is that at the base of your brain is the cerebellum, right? Mm-hmm. And that cerebellum is basically your operating system. It is all the internal agreements. So this happened to Ava, this didn't happen, this has happened to me, this didn't happen to me. When I do X, I'm successful. You know what? When I usually go up to bat, I swing and I miss, and all those things, that agreements, things that have happened over time, and those agreements become self-conscious. So you have agreements about who you are, what your personality is like, what you're good at, what you're not good at. They're all down here, and those things are what I would say are autonomic or automatic, right? And so you don't have access to those, but that's the big challenge. So one of the things I like to say to people is, hey, people are so worried about drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Like getting somebody else's thoughts, not being indoctrinated. You're making and drinking your own Kool-Aid every day. It's being manufactured down here in the base of your brain.
Oh, for so scared. You're like drinking Kool-Aid. I was like, you don't want to die.
No.
Okay.
Not the freaky kind of cult Kool-Aid, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
I will. Okay. So if back here is all that, how would you put that simply? All of the
So
all the
I would
thoughts?
just say your operating system is in the base of your brain, in your reptilian brain. The oldest part of your brain sits basically who you decide who you are, and what you decide you're good at, not good at, all the things that have happened to you over time. Yeah. You've made an agreement about those, right?
And they're all back here.
They're all back here, right? Yeah.
And so if you took that away from the human being, would we be left with without a sense of personality? We wouldn't know who we were. We wouldn't. Well, I feel like we might fall to the floor and not operate. But
right. So I actually I wrote a talk for mindfulness that actually has this idea in it. And what I say is that I pose the question that is the womb state, the state that you're in the womb, is it the ultimate? Is it blissful ignorance, or is it the ultimate state of mindfulness? If you could experience the world without your prior experience, you'd be playing on a field that would not be highly edited by the brain. One experience would not dilute another, right? So it's hard to imagine that. But what I'm saying to you is that I think that's where kids operate. My 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old, they model so much of what I'm striving to get back to. I think we have all the answers at a young age, and then, our learnings tend to cloud some of the magic and the limitlessness that we have. But I do think that a large portion of challenge of who we are and our ability to create and do the next great thing is clouded by the fact that this brain down here is editing our experiences. So imagine that as you get older, the reason that I'm going in a different direction, but even the reason that some people say time goes really fast is because they're living in the future or in the past. They're living from things that are in here and not in the present moment.
And it's honestly, I've been trying to work at that. The present moment is almost so hard to grasp at some points. Because, you know, you're here and you know that you're here, but it's hard to, like, really experience and feel here. Because I know some people, like, they'll hit their chest or, like, they'll kind of, like, do this and be like, I'm physically here.
Right.
But otherwise it's so difficult. And then when you were talking about the editing and, like, wanting to go back to a child, like, I think it's mainly because anything could be anything. Because when we were talking earlier about, like, this is this and this does this, and you said that was great for, like, being able to file things away in functions and you know what to do now and it's fast, but when you're little, like, I could make anything out of that because I don't know what it does yet. I don't know what it's supposed to be here for.
Right, absolutely. And a trick that I like to use, or a hack that I like to use to bring yourself in the present moment, is maybe even set it on your watch or your phone or whatever else, but a little ping 2 or 3 times a day that says, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And is it health and life affirming? Right? Because the challenge is that your emotional brain, your limbic brain, will start to hijack you and take you out of the present moment, right? So you take a moment to arrive. Actually, my wife and I recently went to see a screening of a movie called Walk With Me. It was about Thich Nhat Hanh. Are you familiar with him at all? He's a Buddhist monk that has written about 17 books, traveled all over the world. Yeah,
awesome. He's awesome.
Met with dignitaries, presidents. Buddhist life is virtually no possessions and practice mindfulness. So the most awe-inspiring thing about that whole movie is that in the kitchen they had a sticker and it said, I am truly home. And that's something that my wife and I talk about a lot, about wherever we go, it feels like home, right? And they practice this at every quarter of the hour in the Plum Village that the bells go off. It's like church bells. And when that goes, they say, they take that moment they call to arrive. That means just to be back here. Keep refocusing themselves right here, right now. So, like, the only relationship I have in front of me is you, Ava, right now, right? I'm not thinking about what I'm going to do later or the things that I need to have done. I'm just here focused on you. And so it's a practice, right? It's not a perfection.
And then how would you go about practicing that?
Yeah. I mean, it comes through simple little things like washing your hands. I mean, this sounds corny, but if you could go in the sink and you could wash your hands, or you could, like, feel the steel or the aluminum or whatever that this faucet is made out of, right? You could feel the coldness of that. You could feel the tension as you squirt the soap up. You could feel how, if you're even imagining in your mind, as you're really doing it, feel what it feels like to put the soap on your hands. The water as it's changing temperature, as it's warming up, or whatever else it is, as you're washing your hand, the roughness of the towel. It's like you do little things during the day, every day, things that just seem extraordinary. Even in the movie, there was this guy who was watching ants move around little bits of food, and he was just, like, so in tune with that. And he was sitting and he was just smiling at that. But that was just helping his brain be right here. Now, most of us, and including myself, are not willing to trade my life and give away all my possessions to do that. But I think there's a blend where you can use those techniques and still live in this material world, right?
Yeah, live in the present. I mean, even, it doesn't have to be material. I have, friends, because, I'm a junior in high school.
Right.
Junior year's tough. And I'm chilling, I'm breezing, but I have these friends that they're doing so much and they're never enjoying where they are. It's always about the future. It's always stress of this, like, my grades, my classes, homework, and they never know how to be grounded. And I feel like if anyone can learn how to become more physically grounded, and again, it's hard, especially right now, because, there's computers, there's lights, there's all this,
those are phones, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's it's like all this stimulus. It's like when you're a kid and you're at Chuck E. Cheese and there's lights everywhere and just, you can't focus on one thing. So I feel like, and again, it is corny to say, like, get rid of your phone, get rid of all this and that. Like, but, and again, it's not like forever, but maybe like for an hour you just kind of sit and just, it's calm and you are taking that time to wash your hands.
Or wonderful apps. I mean, I have people use Headspace. I like Insight Timer. Whatever you choose to use. But there are meditations on there that are guided meditations that are 1 or 3 minutes. I mean, you don't have to sit in like a Om pose for an hour and a half every day to find centeredness. It can be 30 seconds to a minute, just getting your brain to calm down and be centered again. The really cool thing about it is that they've now studied people who do meditation via MRI imaging, and they can show that people over time that do meditation actually decrease the size of their limbic system and increase the conscious part, the white matter, the cortex of your brain, that they can see physical differences with meditation over time.
And then what does the limbic system do, and what does the cortex do?
Yeah, so those are really important. So the limbic system is by far in my book the center point of everything for us. It is responsible for the emotional response. Basically, that's the short answer. It does many things, but in the emotional response, it also is going to end up secreting lots of hormones in your body, right? Serotonin, different things that come out of the limbic system. Feel-good chemicals, chemicals that are also chemicals that will induct fight or flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's mental. You can kind of think about the limbic system as a 2.5 to 3 year old toddler. It really behaves and responds and understands things from those viewpoints. It really does. Unlike your thinking brain, which is your cerebral cortex, that's what you're listening to me right now. You're looking at me. You're processing things with. That's what your thinking brain. That's what we think about when we think about a thinking brain. But here's the amazing thing is that emotion is the entire currency of the brain. So from what I say that is that every neurons that fire together wire together. So that's a actual little neuronal proverb. But what happens is you have an experience, you collect the experience, you collect the emotion, and those become like physically linked in your brain. Neurons synapse together. They form new connections based on every memory that you form.
Really? So like, I know this is like a very kiddish example, but you know the movie Inside Out.
I've heard of it. I've not seen it though.
It's all about this this girl, and she's moved, and she's basically experienced a lot of emotions.
Okay.
So she has these very primary emotions because she's like 10 or 11.
Okay.
And after a while, it's always like, this memory is just happy. This memory is just of me being angry or fearful.
Okay.
And then after time, she realizes that like there's a blend to it. So like something can be sad, but also can be like a good thing. So it's a very happy memory.
Okay.
So like even when I moved, it was in the present moment. It was very upsetting. I was like outside the front porch, and I was sobbing. I was like I want to leave, but it hurts. But now I look back and I was like, that is a great memory because I shared it with my dad, and we talked about it all night. It was so cool. Is that what that is? The firing together, wiring together?
Really, in essence, more or less, that you've hit the nail on the head. I think for me, when I explain that, what I want people to understand is two things. One is that, especially for adults, like, excuse the euphemism, but as we age, we tend to get very emotionally constipated, right? Kids like freely express emotion,
yeah.
Right? They when something comes to them, they express it. And then as you become an adult, I think through our tribal conventions, unfortunately, we sort of downplay that and we don't express our emotions as much. But emotions are everything. That's kind of what I want people to know. And also the fact that that's how you're sealing memories. Why, generally speaking, if you can recall something, it either has a really high vibration emotion to it or a low vibration, meaning something was either traumatic or things that are in between. That's why when somebody can ask you, like, what did you do this weekend? What did you eat? And you'd be like, I don't know. I can't. It's like, what did we do this weekend? Because there's not a lot of firing or emotional connectivity unless it was something really amazing. But things that like really were highs for you or lows for you, you can remember because the limbic system is involved, and it will apply. It will capture the emotion and the experience at the same time, and those get fired in your brain. The challenge becomes is when those start to become loops that you can't get out of, and that's where the real hacking and the healing can start for people. They need it.
When you mean the loop, do you mean like always coming back to the same memory?
In essence, yes. So the human animal is probably the best I know. Not that I can get inside a cat's brain. Not that I would want to get inside the cat's brain. That's scary. But as far as the human animal is the only animal that can take an experience and relive it over and over again. I mean, your brain does not know the difference. See, this is the cool thing. The brain does not know the difference between a dog that's going to eat, not your dog, that dog, but like a dog that would eat you in front of you and a dog that's going to eat you in your mind. To the human brain, it's the same, whether you're actually experiencing it in the real world or experiencing it in your head, right?
Really?
So, yes. And so what happens for some people, and for not for some people, for all of us, is that we take certain loops in our brain and we keep rethinking and going over those and over them. We add other experiences to this. I got fearful in this situation, so I'll be fearful in this situation, and this situation looks like that. And then those start to go back into our reptilian brain, or our cerebellum, where our operating system is, and now we find ourselves operating from fear, or we react in a certain way.
Yeah.
When we get in that situation, it almost becomes autonomic. And then some people also say then the body starts to get involved, because the brain is thinking and the body's feeling. And like, anytime I'm in this situation, my stomach gets upset. Why would that happen, Ava? That doesn't make any sense, right? It's because the body listens to what the body feels and listens to what the brain thinks, and those two start to get into a loop. And then you get people who are like, you know what, whenever I eat X, I always feel like this, or my knee always aches. And you can, I know this has taken us far out there, but you can actually rewire your brain in a way to help fix things that are going on in your body.
Well, yeah, because those things are so linked. Like, oh my goodness, one of the coolest stories I ever heard was this guy. He was talking about amputees.
Okay.
People he was studying this thing called like phantom limbs. You ever heard phantom limbs?
Yes.
And he's like, he had his arm cut off from like here down, but he had a phantom limb. He felt like he could grab something. So he's like, I can grab that water bottle. He's okay, grab the water bottle. And before he thought he could grab it, he takes it away. Mm-hmm. And the man's reaction was, ow, that hurt. Why? Well, because when you took it away, I was holding the water bottle. Like, it's not there, but it is. Because the brain and the mind are so heavily connected. I think that's so cool. And I know it's like, when you said, what was it? I'll be fearful in this situation, I'll be fearful in that. Are those all same experiences? Like, for kids nowadays, it's like, this social interaction didn't go well. I'm going to be fearful for the next one. I'm going to be fearful for the next one.
Sure.
And then it loops back around, and I feel like it's like this down spiral of like, I'm going to isolate myself and not talk to anyone. And I want to know how someone can hack that and come back around from that spiral.
It's a great question, and you hit it nail on the head. It's about accumulating those experiences, and you start to transfer, right? And so what happens is that you see something in your present environment, and unconsciously what you do is that you start to relive that experience projected forward into this moment, right? So as you gather more experiences, you're like, oh, well, this looks the same, and I'll start to isolate myself and so forth. The biggest thing that you can do to hack that leap forward is just to be conscious of the fact that you are doing it. That right there not just gets you through the door, but gets you a third of the way down the pathway, right? Is waking up to the fact that, hey, I am doing this, and it's not logical. It doesn't make sense, right? Because the emotional brain is going to go, hey, we're in danger. Hey, we're in danger. Look at me. And it's a 2 to 3 year old kid. The way to hack that as well is that, as corny as this sounds, is that you can't. What people end up doing when they get in the situations and they get harder on themselves, right? They're like, man, I'm such a blah blah blah, and they internally their dialogue is really demeaning, right?
Yeah.
But the way to hack against that, as corny as this sounds, is to talk to yourself like you're a 2 or 3 year old kid. Because
I do that all the time.
Yeah. Because think about it. I mean, if a rhinoceros, when it starts to, this is the way your thoughts work. When a rhinoceros starts to charge, it charges in the direction of whatever it thought was, in the direction of opposite of whatever it was fearful of. A rhinoceros doesn't really charge at you. Its vision is very, very limited. It can't see that far ahead, but it will keep running in the same direction it started until it just loses steam. Your thoughts do the same thing. And what people try to do is they try to stand in front of that rhino. You're just going to get bowled over, or you're going to try to push back. And the more you push back, the more you add to the negative energy that's going on in your brain. But if you just talk to yourself in a way that's conscious and go, calm, even saying the word calm, I'm calm, I'm everything's safe here, you're fine, Go to your happy place. I mean, I've even done it in my own neural training. It sounds so weird, but it really works. Is to talk to your limbic brain and go and just call it by whatever name you want to call it. I call mine Limby because it's short for limbic brain. And I just say baby boy. I just say baby boy, you're fine. I said go to your room and color. I said, you like that little Merlin hat and the magician? I said, be that magician. Be amazing. Jump from bed to bed right now, right? Go outside and just run in the field and chase that butterfly. And have just come and say, I'm in control. There's nothing to fear here.
Yeah.
You are okay. Because that's the kind of talking to that the limbic brain needs to calm down and to get back to baseline.
Yeah, so, like, can you, if you're, like, an outside person, like, say... I see kids like this all the time. Like I want to help them, but I feel like you can't say that for them. Be like, you're fine, you're calm. Like you have to tell yourself that because that's the only way it's gonna like rewire.
Absolutely. You can take a stand for people and you can model energy. So what you were talking about in the phantom limb thing, there's actually a guy by the name of Dr. Norman Doidge. He wrote a book called The Brain That Changes Itself, and he went all around the country to neuroscientists that were doing things that you're talking about. And these motor neurons actually, they're not motor neurons, mirror neurons actually mirror what we see. So when you're sitting across from somebody and somebody's takes a deep breath, you feel that sense of relaxation, right? You tend to feel, or somebody's laughing, you just want to laugh too. You don't even know if somebody just comes in. That's why laughter yoga works really well, which is another thing. You just start laughing for no reason. Other people start laughing. It's our mirror neurons, and so you can't teach somebody to be in that space, but you can model it energetically. I would do that with my kids. They would be really upset, and I would be tense and disheveled myself, and I'd try to deal with them, and they would get more tense and disheveled. But I was calm. I'd take a breath. I'd say calm to them. I would model calm. I'm telling you, like a baby whisperer sometimes. I would even do some of my neural retraining with them, but I do it in their language. I give them a little memory and something to think about. I'm not saying it works 100% of the time, but it is remarkable what mirroring will do for people, right?
That's awesome, because even when you like took a deep breath, I wanted to do it too. Like it's just that incredible. It's just so crazy like that. I love that. so you can train again. I love thinking about the brain so much, and I love these hacks because you're gonna better yourself regardless. So like how. Oh, I had so many questions for you, and they're all blanking.
Well, one thing I wanted to say is so you're talking about how you can model. Have you ever been around somebody that when you're around them, you're just like, I just like who they are, right? What's coming off of them is just, of course, I'm sure when you're sitting next to me that I'm that example, of course, right? Yes, but we've all been around those people that, and from my book, the most amount. The person who needs to advertise the least and you understand them the most without them saying anything is the most powerful, right? They just walk into a room and they carry a certain energy. How is that? I mean, is there like some weird Star Wars juju that we're not aware of, right? Yeah, use the Force, right? I mean, maybe, but in the real sense, it's like, how do some people embody that so well? It's the way that they've consciously thought and trained their own brain, and so that shows us when you say how you can help people, that shows us is that if you work on the inner remodeling of who you are and how you think and shepherd your own thoughts, you can have an amazing impact on people without really even saying or doing very much at all.
That's powerful regardless, because I know you do like public speaking, so even that can like affect hundreds of thousands of people, even like, especially through video. Oh my goodness. So what are some other things that people really struggle with? Because we talked about living the past or living in the future. We talked about like getting in that loop of an emotion and not performing any function well because of that. What's something else that people struggle with?
I think the thing that people really struggle with is comparison and judgment, right? Comparison and judgment. So again, getting back to where we exercise biological forgiveness. When you walk into a room, or when you're sitting somewhere and somebody walks up to you and they get close. Most of the time we don't get really close to someone when we walk up to somebody new. We give them a certain amount of space. Why is that? Because your brain is categorizing and taking all this input primarily for one reason and one reason only, to make sure that you're safe, right? We live in a world now it's been safer than it ever has been in human history. Yet, the number of people that feel like they're in anxiety or that the world's going to hell in a handbasket, that opinion is huge, right? Which is not really reality. So, but the brain's natural function is to take input, categorize it, and compare it. What does this look like to what I've seen before? What category does this belong into? And am I safe, right? So I'm saying this is a natural function of the brain. So now layer this on a society, right, where every commercial you see is about what you're wearing and what you're fronting and what you got on and what you look like. And then you get onto social media and who's got the coolest Instagram photo and where were they and, and what they're doing. And they seem like they have a happy life and they're taking pictures with people. Why am I not invited? Blah, blah, blah. And that becomes comparison and judgment, and it becomes a very vicious cycle in your brain, right? And so the challenge is that because your brain sees that comparison and judgment, it starts judging you. You're judging yourself, right? When you do so, anytime you're doing comparison judgment on somebody else, you're really judging yourself, and you do it in a way that keeps building this loop or this wall in your brain higher and higher, and people struggle with that comparison judgment. I would say that's a big, huge concern, especially with social media today. Not to vilify it, but that's just the way it is.
No, of course. I go to a couple youth groups, and they got lovely girls. One of the days they talked about self-judgment, and all these girls are like, I can't seem to not compare myself to other people. And again, it's no fault of their own, because you want to be good. I feel like most of the time we have that comparison for a primal sense of am I safe?
Right.
It's am I safe in this society? Not even you're fearful of harm, but rejection, isolation, not being outcast if you're fearful of that.
Oh, for sure.
So you want to stay in that, but again, it's not hyperactive, but it's hyper to the point of my hair, my clothes, even though those hardly have an effect, on who you are as a person. And I feel like that's going to really diminish the personality of the person, and that's not helpful at all. So how would you hack that?
Yeah, comparison and judgment is one of those things that's our brain is naturally set in there to do. The analogy I like to sometimes give is that you have to kind of be your own Sherpa. Are you familiar with this term Sherpa? What it is? Okay. So a Sherpa is like somebody that you hire, if you go climbing in the mountains and you need a guide to show you the way, and they have the mule with supplies on it, they're going to be that person to help. So you need to be your own Sherpa and just basically be shepherding the thoughts. So it's a challenging thing to start with, but if you think about it, don't just allow any thoughts or any feelings just to enter your brain and run around in there unchecked, right? It's a matter of checking in with yourself and going, why am I thinking this right now? Or even better is, what am I thinking right now? And being that metacognitive, mindful person, just having a neutral observer, and that this is like a catch-22, is that to really get rid of the comparison and judgment, you don't need to, it would be helpful to if you were could observe what was going on in your brain from a non-judgmental standpoint. So probably the first step in somebody's is just being okay with the fact that you have all this crap going on. That would be one small step. Instead of going, oh, it's this and it's that, and I can't get it out of my head. Just take a moment and go, you know what? Whatever's going on with me right now, I completely accept this. Even saying those words out now, I am completely accepting of who I am, what I'm thinking, and how I'm feeling right now. If you could say that would start to release that because the comparison and judgment that people feel is all about, they're saying, is all about the judgment on themselves. And if you could come to a place where you could say out loud, so that's part of a big neuro reprogramming or rewiring technique, is that to say it out loud. The next level up would be to actually feel the acceptance. Go, you know what? Neal, I love who you are. I love who you are, and you are amazing. In that moment, even if you don't feel it, who cares? But by saying that and saying it out loud, you're giving your brain a chance to hear it and start a new tape loop in your head.
Yeah, and I feel like that can even calm you down.
For sure.
Yeah, and the part that I like, how do I, it's that, feeling good, and that's accepting it and being okay with it and being like, okay, you're good. But then you'd want to progress too, because I'm okay with where I am, and I'm like, okay, cool, I like this. But you always want to be better. And especially right now, not facing this time, but we're in this area of complacency. People go, I like who I am, and I'm not going to change. I'm like, okay, that's awesome, cool. But where you are right now isn't that good. So if the best I can give is like, that girl or that guy who's comparing themselves like athletically. A guy's like, I'm not strong, I'm weak. And if he's like, oh, I'm content that I'm weak, that's good. I'm okay with that. That's awesome. But wouldn't you want them to progress? Then how do you mentally push that person in order to like be bettering themselves?
And that's another great question. And people often think about, oh, well, if I do this mindfulness, if I tell myself that I like who I am right now, then I'm just going to get complacent and I won't have a drive. Total bullcrap as well.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. That's just old school thinking. Because we become addicted to our own echoes, right? Become addicted to our own thought process. That's another thing to become aware of, is that just because you're thinking something over and over doesn't make it right. It's just you have an addiction to your own way of thinking. And one of our addictions is that, okay, if we're hard on ourselves, or we whip ourselves, or we tell us get up and get going, you got to get your blank in gear, right? That's the way to motivate. Gosh, I'm spacing her name. It's not Brene Brown. I can't think of it. It doesn't matter. But she's a psychologist and an author. I'll think of it later. But she's actually done some great studies. And I think the answer is the difference between self-esteem and self-compassion. So self-esteem is more a narcissistic thing, right? It's like, how do I look in the selfie? How do I, do I look good compared to other people? But the challenge with self-esteem is self-esteem leaves you in your failures and in your imperfections. When you're really failing or things aren't going for you, well, what they found is that when people who work on self-compassion and work on being compassionate themselves, they actually are more motivated, they are more productive, and they actually are better and productive in a work environment for the people around them than people who are focused on self-esteem.
That's awesome. Do you think that's because they have a good foundation of who they are? You have a good centerness, and then from that you can go forward?
Absolutely. It comes to the adage that you cannot give what you are unwilling to give yourself, right?
Yeah.
If you're unwilling to be compassionate to yourself, unwilling to pay into yourself, then it's really hard to give. And you see those people out there who are giving all the time, but they're empty inside, right? Because you have to, charity starts at home. I say that to my wife. I kind of joke with a little bit, but it really does. I mean, we don't have a good tribal convention on how to receive. We're not taught this. I mean, think about it in school, whatever else. Does anybody ever teach you how to receive, other than when you're a really little kid and somebody might pay you a compliment, and then somebody rhetorically will prompt the little kid to go, they said, oh, you're so cute, or you're really smart. They'll say, what do you say, right? But beyond that, we're never really taught how to receive. And in fact, we kind of vilify this receiving thing. It's like, you shouldn't receive, you should give. But to be able to receive, this is one other test I give people. Try giving an adult a compliment, like another adult compliment. Like in the corporate world, it used to happen to me all the time. Give somebody a compliment, and they go, well, I got lucky, it was a team effort, blah, blah, blah. And I call it the 3 phases of shun, like SUHN, deflection, rejection, and qualification. Because they're doing everything they can to remove themselves from the compliment. And again, because we're not tribally taught, it's good to receive and it's good to pay into yourself.
Yeah, because, I've always, that and from a social standpoint, you almost don't want to. I've noticed, especially with, girls, to be like, you look so pretty. No, because one, if you say that, they go, you, quote mean girls, you think you're pretty? You're confident in yourself, you like yourself, and then it's like, and it can be so many other things.
People think you're conceited, or people think you're full of yourself, right? If you take a compliment.
Yeah. And it's almost like, how do I, because again, there's so many outlets you can go through this, and because you do want to detach yourself, but you also don't want to take credit for these things. I don't know how I'd put it. But I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it's a very prevalent culture of this self-esteem thing. So it's really hard at first to go, okay, I'm going to be compassionate for myself. I'm going to be, in a moment of my failure, I'm going to go, I'm not going to get, there's a difference between that complacency. I'm going to say to myself, I'm going to release the tension. Here's the operative word, is that in self-esteem is this tension, because I don't want anything to go wrong, because if it did, then how do I account for that? And I don't know how to deal with that internally, and I can't show anybody that, right? But in self-compassion, you go, you know what? People mess up. Pick yourself up. You're fine. So what? You screwed it up. Get up and do it again. You're fine. But you have the compassion to tell yourself that, right?
Because when you, oh my goodness, I read this book in Spanish, because it's Spanish. Marianella, she believed that she was, ugly, but there's this boy, he was blind, and, he really liked her. And he's like, you're lovely. You're beautiful. No, I'm not. You're a kind person, and I enjoy you so much. I'm so grateful for you. No, I'm horrible and I'm hideous. You never allow yourself to love yourself. Oh, and if you,
I love that.
And
yes, perfect.
And seriously, and if you don't love yourself, you are going to reject any other love that anyone else gives you. Even when it comes down to compliments, you did such a good job in business. No, I didn't. It was my team. Sure, it can be humbling. That's great for your team, but you have to understand the fact that you did this. David Goggins, he's so cool. He's like this. He might as well be like Batman. This guy is extremely. Oh yeah, he's he went through Hell Week for Navy SEALs 3 times over. He's done these incredible marathons.
Okay.
He had this he had this thing called the cookie jar, and every time things were going tough and things were going bad, he's like, I just go to the cookie jar. In his mind, he'd go, who suffered all these things? I did. Who accomplished all these things? I did. Look how great I am. I can do this. I can beat this next thing. And because no one does that, and you don't allow yourself to think that you're amazing, you don't continue the next amazing thing, or you don't think you can. So you just kind of stay back, and you don't want to, things like that.
I love what you said. I couldn't have put it better myself. The brain has this really for me, it's kind of annoying thing that what doesn't line up with what it already knows, it will quickly dismiss. So what happens is that we end up dismissing our successes quickly, because we spend more time we spend a lot of our bandwidth on the negatives and what we didn't do well and what didn't go right. And again, it's been shown on a neuroscientific basis that our brain inherently has a negative bias. It has a bias for, have you ever watched Mean Tweets by Jimmy Kimmel, right? How mean people are negatively biased, right?
Yeah.
So, where was I going with this? You were talking about
people. Wait, how do you put it? Because you don't love yourself, you deject love. You don't want to. You wouldn't want to, and you started talking about how.
Yes, and so the way to another hack, a simple hack, and actually, I preach this, but full admission, I'm a very transparent person. I this is not something I do well, is to record your successes on a daily basis, and to speak your successes out loud, even if it's about getting out an email that you want to get out and saying yes after you get the email out, but actually doing and not editing what you think a success is too, by the way, because that's also comparison judgment.
Really?
Oh, I'm not going to write this one down because it's not a success. Why isn't it a success? Because you're comparing it to what other people have done. Write your successes down, and then look at those when you're in that state of that abyss, right?
Yeah.
Or another one I like is even a success pyramid, right? All the things that you've accomplished in a pyramid fashion, and then the one that you want to accomplish next, you write at the top of the pyramid, right? And you use that to metaphorically and in your mind stand upon that and see off that, hey, this is totally doable by me. I can do this. So.
And not only that, I remember, I don't remember who was talking about it, but on a neurological level, you have the receptors, the dopamine receptors. Yep. And so if you remember all the goals that you had, or you keep accomplishing little doable goals,
right,
little successes, you'll have this cookie jar of I can do this, and you have more dopamine that you can easily be taken in. But I feel is it easier to have what are neurochemicals that receive negativity? What are those neurochemicals? What are the receptions of that?
don't know it at that level that what receive negativity. What I can say is that there are definitely spending your time in positive thinking, spending your time in visualizations are the ones that are releasing all the good neurochemicals. Um, you know, that'd be an interesting piece of research for me to do. Is that how do we lay down these negative, quote unquote, negative neurons or negative paths in our brain? I'm not certain. I think from a neuroscientific standpoint, there's not going to be a big difference between a neural tract that captures a negative memory or a positive experience, but it's the emotion and it's the release of neurochemicals when you relive it that's the most important thing. The other hack in rewiring the brain is to actually give yourself positive experiences over and over again. So what does that look like? So I said this in one of the talks, and I was like, is positive thinking enough? And it's a start, but the challenge is that if you just go, you know what, I can do this, right? That's not enough. You need to associate it with an emotion. So then you associate it with let's say a feeling of joy or happiness, right? And you do that, and you say, I'm enough, and you say that in that moment. But that's still not enough because you need to visualize it. So a lot of athletes talk about visual. You're a swimmer, right? You do visualization in what you do.
Not only that, like because I'm a butterfly, right? That
Right.
is the only stroke I feel most powerful. I feel like I'm using all my energy. I'm hitting the water. So instead of me like seeing and visualizing that I'm doing that, I'm not only visualizing. I'm in that moment. I feel it. I feel every pull. I feel every stroke. I feel the water, and more or less, I emphasize the power that I feel that I have, and that makes me want to go. It makes me want to swim. That's why that's one of the reasons I stick so much with it, because that feels so good to have that visualization.
Yeah, and that's perfect. I mean, but you could take that same thing that you're doing, that power, that feel, that greatness that you feel, and what if you just were sitting in this chair, but you were talking through the experience and you were having it. You said, and you're like, the water temperature, and I can smell the chlorine, and I can feel my body, and and my stroke feels so strong. I feel like like a cougar clawing against the cement. I'm like just pulling forward. I'm just I'm cranking on this, right?
Yeah.
And you feel the power, and you do that for a sustained amount of time. Let's say for 3 to 5 minutes. That's rewiring in a nutshell, my friend. In that process, what is physically happening is your brain is releasing good neurochemicals. That's why the limbic system is the alchemist of your brain. It's releasing all these good neurochemicals, and it's forming a new pathway. So what happens is those pathways that don't serve you, like the ones for fear and other things, as you do this more and more, they physically retreat. There are dendrites, there are connections to other neurons, and they call this process pruning. They actually prune back, and you do it over time. So people will rewire for, let's say, they rewire for a stomach issue or for anxiety or for too much comparison. But what happens is you get a lot of other benefits along the way, because rewiring isn't like putting a puzzle piece together where you know exactly what you're putting together. When you're rewiring, you just start to get other things. It's like all of a sudden it's like, you know what? I just feel more calm. I feel more happy every day. You know what? I used to be allergic to bell peppers. They would always hurt my stomach, and now I can eat them and it doesn't bother me anymore. They can get all kinds of awesome additive benefits as you rewire you think you're rewiring for one thing, but the brain's not that clear. It's not like this roadway is talking about Neal's fear of, whatever, being more abundant, right, in his life and getting to the next level with his business. I'm going to just rewire that one. You end up rewiring a lot of other things as a result.
That's so cool. Like, that's so cool. I love it.
I know,
so much.
right? You're making me excited about it all over
So,
again.
like, is that when you have that, like, that sense of, taking those positive experiences, like, again, the swimming, the feeling powerful, remembering a success you did, and then applying it to a new situation, and is that what internal motivation is? Because, well, not internal motivation, but like having a drive. Because motivation's that, like, in the moment, like, I'm gonna do it, and then 10 minutes later you're like, no, I don't want to anymore.
Like, this sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that rewiring, or that, like, that remembering the building a drive and then going?
Yeah. I don't remember if it was one of your dad's videos or something. I comment. He talked about drive or something like that. What I can say is that motivation, what I can say is that as you add these positive effects and your brain tends towards a less of a negative bias, you're going to be more motivated to do things, right?
Yeah.
Could you build motivation through a rewiring process? Wow, that's a really good question, Ava, you asked. My overall feeling is yes,
Yeah.
I don't think it would be like perfectly, because there's not a emotion of motivation that's like pure, right? So you would just be getting rid of those things that are standing in your way, and you would feel more motivated. Could you go through visualizations where so this is the other freaky thing, and this goes to if you haven't watched this video, I'll actually loan you the disc. You'll love this. You would eat this up. You may have already seen it. It's called What the Bleep Do I Know?
Wait, what do we do now?
No, it's What the Bleep Do I Know? And it's like 4 hours of these physicists talking about the universe and things, but in a way that will blow your mind because it links into consciousness, right?
I think it was I don't want to check my notebook, but like Alita McDaniel, she's someone else I had on the podcast. I think she recommended that documentary to me.
Okay.
And she's like, you will love this. I watched this and it's so powerful.
Oh,
so I will.
If you don't have it, I mean, I know nobody plays DVDs anymore. Mine's been sitting on a shelf for a while.
We got that.
Oh, yeah,
I'll have a field day, just taking everything in.
I'd love to watch it. I want to watch it again, but basically, what I'm saying to you is that what I've experienced in my own life, like when I do when I do visualizations, I do visualizations about things that I want. I do visualizations about things that never even happen. It doesn't matter. That's the other thing is people like, oh, you have to do a past visualization or past success. You can do anything you want, whether it's happened or not, so long as you get into the emotion. But the funnest, most amazing thing about visualization is doing a visualization about something that you want in your life and then seeing that bad boy manifesting, coming true, and working out almost exactly the way you planned it. That, I mean, I'm going to keep it clean here, but that is like... Yeah, it's like unbelievable, like top of the key, shadow the backboard kind of feeling because you're like, wow, I thought about this, I visualized this, and now I am in this moment living it out, right? And I do those visualizations for my future, and I'm telling you, you can pull your future into the present by doing
that's almost euphoric because that's one of the biggest reasons why I want to create something. Because again, like we're on a podcast, we're also recording video. Like that's creating to me. That's cool. But like I want to like something tangible. I want to make something. I feel like that would be so cool to have something in your mind, and then you just project it into reality. Like it's so powerful, and I feel like not only is it powerful, it's like euphoric and addictive. That's why a lot of like the kids I know who like to build things, they can't get enough of it. They want to constantly learn. They want to constantly build.
Absolutely, and if you think about it from a neuroscientific perspective, it makes sense because basically what you're doing is, since we can't access the conversations, our operating system here, what you're doing is you're having conscious thought and you're firing that with an emotional experience, and that gets pushed down into your operating system. You keep doing that over time, you're hacking your operating system basically. And so if this is the basic reason why we do something and why we go after certain things and don't go after certain things, you're basically hacking into the system. You're like the ultimate hacker. You're putting in a good virus instead of a bad one, right? One that will replicate certain things that you want. And then you find yourself being motivated. You find yourself being attracted. You find yourself just meeting people. In these 13 months since I've jumped off the corporate ship and just decided I'm just going to free fall into this entrepreneurship, I've done so many amazing things that I never thought I would do, right? But I just put it out there, and some of it was scary.
Yeah.
And I went into scarcity, and my wife and I were like, oh, blank, what did we just do to our lives, right? But it's been amazing, right? Just simple fact of sitting here in your home doing this podcast, right? This wasn't available to me 13 months ago, but now it is today.
Actually, I do want to talk about these things because I want to know, like, because you're building these companies up and you're doing all these speaking gigs. Like, can you please tell some of these stories or talk about all that you're doing?
Sure. I can kind of give you like an overview. So at first I was admittedly I was kind of a little bashful about this because it was like, what do I call myself, right? Because people want they want a card or a name or a title of what you do, and it seemed like I was everywhere, and I kind of was for a while. I was just exploring, but then I was okay with it. I read an article, I don't know where it was, but it was like it talked about the new economy, and it's like it talked about career/gig/gig. Like a lot of people are doing this, they also do this, and they also do this, right? They have the side hustle. That term is pretty familiar to all of us by now. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So I'm in partnership. I have a part equity stake, and I run day-to-day operations of a proactive wellness ball called Feel Good Now. And basically, we focus on nutritional therapy. So it's basically saline bags, IV bags, but it's full of the vitamins and minerals that you would get from food. Naturopaths have been using this. This is pioneered in the 60s, and they are using this to fight cancer, to help with Crohn's, chronic Lyme, macular degeneration of your eyesight. Our clientele is more athlete, middle of the road, too much weekend, too much business, too much mothering. We're not. So we have clients more than we have patients, but it's really powerful stuff. And I about 2 years ago, I got again through amazing connections, got hooked up with this guy named Matt Hasbrook, and he's been an awesome business partner. We have a chief medical officer, because all of this has to be run through a medical person. But I have a medical background. I went to medical school for 2.5 years, took a leave of absence. So and I worked in bio and pharma as a business development guy for a long time. I kind of did like secret ops kind of stuff, things that I couldn't be mentioned to the public. That's kind of type of stuff I worked on. Helped other businesses do their business. And so it was a perfect fit for me, because I had also taken IVs as part of my own health journey. So that's one business. And then my brother and I have a social app media company. It's called Seismic Vision, which that's not as important. And we have 2 apps out there. And the one that's most prevalent is Icebreaker.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And it's ICEBR8KR rather. And it basically gives you the opportunity to be social. What we looked in the marketplace is we're like, most social media, almost all social media isn't really social.
Yes.
You're doing it in isolation from afar. Most people are using their excess time to just look and see what everybody else is doing. But how do you meet people? And if you're out, I was in airports 80% of the time, and everybody's doing this. They have their phone in front of their face. And I was like, I'm the guy who will poke people and go, hey, you, what do you do, right? I'll like disrupt that pattern. But for most of us, we're in front of our phones. And people want to place this at the millennials' feet. Again, bullcrap. Adults spend 41% of their time in front of a screen. Go to any co-working space, like all the speakeasies. Everybody's doing this. There's not networking being done there. Everybody's looking at their phone or their computer.
Yeah.
So we gave people a 100-yard radius. We discover in real time, real human connections, real line of sight. The app gives you the ability to start the awkwardness of the hello, because what's the hardest part of saying hello to somebody?
Walking up and going, I don't know you, but hi.
Yes, yeah. It has always been awkward, let's be honest, right, for most people, but now it's become more awkward. So our app allows you a certain number of volleys back and forth, and the algorithms then, at a certain number of back and forths, ask you to meet, or you have to move on to the next person. So we've been launched since May, and we've done an incredible number of things in there. Got mentioned the Huffington Post, was a VIP at a tech conference, got wrote up in the Carmel Current, and we even talked to the NBA about a version to help people who are in the suites, like the club level, for help those people network, because they're usually people of influence that. So and we're getting our paperwork together to talk to investors. So we're at that point where we're all self-funded. And those conversations are ongoing and seem to look very positive. Cool. So yeah, we have another app that basically does the same thing that Instagram did, but for the activity. All our apps are kind of low noise, low throughput, so they're very light interface. We want people to get in and get connected. So, and then speaking coaching thing is I've been doing all my life, Ava. I've been doing it since I probably was 5 years old. My dad tells a story when my brother and I were playing with trucks, and my brother wasn't happy, and I just looked over at him and I said, "Can't you just be happy with what you have?" And my dad was like, "What do you?" Yeah, and so that my dad and I bonded over ideas and thoughts, not over football. He kind of pushed me and asked me to think in a certain way, and so I found myself when I was in my business travels just always coaching people to the next thing in their life. I cried with people on planes. People that asked me to call their son or daughter and talk to them, and what I talked to them about, what I talked to their parent about on the plane. I've had a 6'9" guy from Ghana lift me out of his cab and give me a hug, and say thank you for being in my cab today, because my real goal is passionate, positive impact, right? How can I make a difference, right? Because being on the road sucks. Traveling,
Yeah.
business traveling, but the way I could stay alive was to. So now I've sort of formalized this and done some speaking gigs here in Indianapolis, some TED-like talks, and I'm working on some coaching clients. I call them mind mentoring, really, because that's my emphasis. So
That's so incredible. Like the feel good now. I think that's such a cool concept. The instead of IVs, all of these things that can really help people with the nutritional, because I really do like nutrition, and that has such a powerful effect because a lot of doctors they go, this is the body, the body, the body. I can give you like pharmaceuticals. I can give you pills, but a lot of things is nutrition. It's the microbiome. It's keeping that healthy, and the things you're probably providing your clients is that healthiness that they need, and not a fecal transplant. You're all
I'm impressed that you even know that. That's amazing. Yes.
yeah, well, because you know Naveen Jain.
No.
Naveen, you might like what Naveen Jain does. He's so cool. He takes on so many projects, and he's a multi-billionaire. He's a billionaire. So he's always so curious, and he has like Moon I don't want to mess it up. I think it's like Moon Express or Express.
Okay.
And he's like, we're gonna be the first like private company to go to the moon. We are, because I'm going to harvest minerals from the moon, or like anything good.
Okay.
He's like, I think it's energy. Again, I haven't done a lot of research on what he's done.
Okay.
And he's done it. He's doing it right now. And now he goes, okay, that's cool. That's one company. He's like, this is really cool, the microbiome. And he's like, I'm going to make it so that, health, so illness is a choice. It's going to be a choice. And he's currently he's so cool. And he has all the money in the world to do it.
Wow.
I feel bad for not diving into more of his work. I probably should, but he's doing crazy things like that. So I learned a little bit about the microbiome from him. And he's like, and he talked a little about fecal transplants. He's like, that's why they use poop, because from a person who's healthy, because their microbiome's good.
Right.
Yours sucks. Having that bacteria inside, in your body is awesome. That's why, even what I've noticed a lot is the kids that have the clean houses at a young age, they have so many allergies, and because they've never been exposed to things. And my parents let me run around and eat dirt.
The healthiest kids, some of the healthiest kids come from farms where there's just in eating dirt is actually a good thing. It really is. It's been proven, because you can get probiotics that they're all from soil. Right?
Yeah.
So that was the whole emphasis of eating dirt. In fact, my dad cracks me up, because my dad is really this very impressive person that blasted out of India from a dirt floor farm. Literally, his father was 9th grade educated. His mother died in his adolescence, but somehow he managed to get a doctor of veterinary medicine from India, and he came here and got a PhD in genetics. So he's always reading. But my 2-year-old, my J-Love's always got her finger in her nose, and then she'll put it in her mouth, right? And my dad goes, "Let her do it." He goes, "That's helping out her gut flora." He's like, I'm just okay, Dad, let her eat her burgers.
It's I'll trust. It's so funny. I love that, because even our neighbors, they have triplet girls and one boy. I feel bad for him. They're so young, and the mother, she's so nice. I love Miss Kara. She'll just let them run outside and do whatever with
awesome.
With bare feet and everything, and she's like, they're good, it's fine. And they're being raised so well like that, because it's not the protection, it's not the keep things clean. It's so cool. And then the icebreaker thing, actually, so one, I think that's amazing, and the fact that it's going that far, so cool. I'm so curious to see where that goes, especially with the other deals.
IU, Purdue, and Central University of Michigan. We've got 3 business run kind of student groups, or business run kind of student groups engaged, helping us spread it in each campus. So yeah, it's
so
incredible.
Cool. And then so when you get into the app, is it this person, and does it give a little background of who they are, and then you can meet them if you want, because if this is targeted to adults and college kids, and I'm a 16-year-old child, I might be a little lenient, but I still want to try it.
Sure.
Try icebreaker. So what does it look like?
So yeah, so it's basically, we've kept it as simple and clean as possible, and the sort of misleading thing about the interface is it seems very simple, but it took us 2 years, Ava, to do this. I mean, it was, and we spent 6 months on basically making it, so that it's safe and comfortable to use, right? And so there are only basically 2 main screens. There is a list view where you have where you have a ICE users, and then you have a map view where you can see people's location, right? But there are 3 levels of comfort. You don't have to have your pin on the map at all, but you can still participate. You can have a pin, but it's anonymous, so you don't even know who that pin is. Or you can turn on your pin, there's a little smiley face, and that actually, when the user zooms in, they can see that pin is your little icon or whatever you've chosen for your profile. But that actually self-releases it. It releases itself if you move more than 0.25 miles in any direction. So then there are many other things that go into that. But that's the interface. Now, this is our MVP, our minimal viable product. All self-funded. Especially my brother, is relentless about thinking about revisions and things that we think will help people stay more engaged. And that's why we're looking for funding right now. But one of the things that we didn't want to do is, and we're getting really good feedback on, and we're targeting right now, college kids and millennials, people in your generation too, for sure, there's not a bunch of data mining. There's not a bunch of pictures on it. It's just you log in and you get going, right? And you don't even invite your friends to it because it's whoever is in that 100-yard radius with you. So you can't become reliant on just the 3 or 4 people that you always hang out with anyway.
Yeah, that's such a problem for kids. Maybe more people than that, but like, especially when
I think for a lot of people.
I know, because like when I walked into like random settings and I was the only one, I was like, okay, that's fine. But every time, I promise you, even like going to the bathroom, I had friends that were like, from the cafeteria to the bathroom, they go, can you come with me? I don't want to be alone. Like, there's no point to that.
Sure.
But regardless. Wait, we're a little over time. But thank you so much for being able to talk. It honestly meant the world to me.
Yes.
And I hope that everyone checks out all of these cool things you're doing and learns about the brain more and wants to go out and study, because I sure as heck do.
But it's been a really privilege to be here, Ava. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. If you like what we're doing, please help us grow by sharing our content. And if you have any recommendation for future guests, please email me at agwetrick@gmail.com.